Government has terminated contract with RLG Communications Limited and other service providers as part of measures to restructure activities of the Ghana Youth Entrepreneurial and Employment Development Agency, GIDA. A letter signed by Alhaji Abdullah Yakubu, Chief Director of the Ministry of Youth and Sport, referred to a contract signed on 23rd July 2012 between the Ministry of Youth and Sport and the NYEP, now GIDA, on one hand, and RLG Communications on the other, for the provision of services under the RLG Communications module of the agency. The decision to cancel the contract, according to the letter, was reached following a series of meetings between government and the service providers. The letter also directed RLG Communications to continue its engagement with the Attorney General's Department and the Ministry of Justice to refund some amounts to governments.
Meanwhile, Minister for Youth and Sport, Elvis Efiye Ankra, has ruled out the possibility of government facing a judgment debt due to the cancellation of contracts between the government and the RLG Communication, Jospon Group of companies and other service providers under the Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, GIDA. Contracts cancelled by the government include the RLG's communication training model, Asonga Cottage Industry and Exchange Program, and the Better Ghana Management Service Limited, a subsidiary of Jospon Group, the parent company of Zoomlion. Also, the National Coordinator of Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Agency, Kobe Champon, has stated that the termination of all service contracts by government was because the companies involved did not meet the value for money audit, which was undertaken by GIDA.
Ethiopian Foreign Minister Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has met President John Mahama on attempts to bring peace to South Sudan, where fighting between the young country's army and rebel forces is blamed for at least 1,000 deaths, with thousands more displaced. The meeting at the Flagstaff House here in Accra comes shortly after Ghana announced it will contribute troops to peacekeeping efforts in South Sudan.
South Sudan's warring factions, led by the country's President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar, have yet to agree, especially on the release of political detainees being held by the government. The Ethiopian Foreign Affairs Minister discussed general bilateral issues with President John Mahama. Developments in South Sudan, however, dominated the meeting.
What we proposed during the ministerial foreign ministers' visit to Juba was a cessation of hostilities, a start of immediate political dialogue, because we believe that the conflict cannot be resolved through military conflict. And third was the issue of detainees, the release of detainees, because it was not because the opposition brought the release of detainees as a condition, but we felt that they could contribute to the political process.
Describing the negotiations as tough, Foreign Minister Tedros Adhanom said progress had been made on cessation of hostilities and access to humanitarian supplies, but political dialogue and release of detainees are still shaky.
President Salva was positive to release the detainees if they could help the political process, but he wouldn't just release them. He said he would do it through the country's legal process to expedite the legal process. And one model that was proposed was to charge them, bail, and then could be transferred to IGAD so they can contribute to the political process. And the communique set a deadline for the two parties to meet, and the two parties met in Addis. They are still in Addis. So far, they have agreed on the two agenda items for the direct talks. But still, it would be important to continue to address the detainees issue.
He was, however, hopeful of a breakthrough by Wednesday, January 15. President John Mahama indicated Ghana's willingness to contribute to the peace process, hence the country's quick response to the request for troops.
All of us feel we've commenced the mobilization. We're moving our troops in Côte d'Ivoire. We have a battalion in Côte d'Ivoire that we're moving to South Sudan. The mobilization has started, and the UN has asked us to beef up that number to a full battalion size of 850. And we hope that our troops there can contribute, especially to the humanitarian dimension of things. We see on TV every day the displaced persons and the human suffering that is taking place, and that's why Ghana is anxious to get our troops on the ground as quickly as possible and secure the lines for humanitarian assistance to come through.
The conflict in South Sudan has been raging since December 2013, with Ethiopia being an ideal destination for peace talks due to its proximity. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is the latest to join efforts towards bringing peace to the world's newest country. The UN estimates more than 1,000 people have been killed and over 400,000 displaced in the conflict. Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
Meanwhile, the Ethiopian Foreign Affairs Minister says he is in the country to broker agreement to boost relations with Ghana. Minister Tridos Adhanom and his entourage were taken to the presidency by the Ghanaian counterpart Hannah Tete.
Both sides agreed that bilateral relations between the two countries, which happens to be the longest surviving on the continent, though has been good, could do with some improvement. Dr. Adhanom said looking forward, emphasis will be on organized and achievable cooperation.
We signed our general cooperation agreement that covers political, economic and social aspects. And I was very glad to see that my sister Hannah actually moved forward and even appointed some of her colleagues based on our agreement to install a follow-up mechanism. Decision is to proceed with sector-specific agreements. It could be natural resources, it could be peacekeeping. We have good experience from both sides, but we can still share experience. But we can identify some priority sectors, both of us, and then move into signing of the sector-specific agreements.
President Mahama re-emphasized his position on regional integration as he agreed with the minister on focusing on priorities as far as bilateral cooperation is concerned.
Because as individual countries, we can only do so much. We can do more if we integrate our economies and create free trade areas so that our people and goods and services can move freely across the continent. You can move things easily between Europe and Ghana, then you can move things between Ghana and Nigeria, and that is unacceptable. And so we are continuing to work within our sub-region, and I know that you're also working within IGAD and SADC, and all of them are working, to be able to harmonize our trade and make it easy for our people to move goods and services amongst ourselves. And if we're able to do that amongst the various economic sub-regions, we must also open up trade so that goods can move across the continent, more easily than they have done in the past.
Dr. Tedros Adhanom has been in Ghana since Sunday, January 12, to explore investment avenues as well as exchange of expertise for development.
The Public Affairs Manager of the Ghana Cocoa Board, Noah Kwesi-Amanya, has debunked reports that about 40,000 tons of Ghanaian cocoa beans have been smuggled to the Ivory Coast owing to the falling cedi. Although he believes the reports are mere speculations, he wants security agencies monitoring smuggling activities at the borders to be more vigilant to avert such occurrences. Noah Amanya, however, says the rumor will not drive them to review the producer price of cocoa in Ghana.
Ghana's currency continues to fall, losing nearly 7% of its value against the dollar, while Ivory Coast euro-pegged CFA franc has gained ground. Currently, a gap of 60 to 70 CFA franc is said to be between the two countries, taking into account inflation and currency fluctuations in Ghana. The situation is said to have made prices of cocoa in Ivory Coast more attractive to Ghanaian farmers and has therefore spurred the smuggling of Ghanaian cocoa beans to the top grower. But the Ghana Cocoa Board says the reports are mere speculations.
That we can have 40,000 metric tons of Ghana's cocoa moving across the border. And whoever had been able to record that should be able to give us the evidence so we can arrest those who are doing that. Otherwise, then it's speculative. Cocoa Board, we do not have any mechanism at the borders. We don't control the borders. It will be difficult for us to be registering the smuggling. And even if we had seen one case, we would have taken it very serious and apprehended the people. But what we have in place is that for the internal marketing of cocoa, we have regulations. And the regulation is that if a licensed buying company should buy cocoa in Ghana, and send it across the border, that LBC would have its licenses revoked and the perpetrators would be sent to court because it is criminal, it's an offense against the state.
There have been calls for the review of the producer price of cocoa in Ghana, which is currently pegged at 3,392 cedis per ton, while Ivory Coast has introduced a new minimum price for farmers. Cocoa Board believes the reports are only a ploy to push them to review the cocoa producer prices.
If the cedi had fallen so much that the producer price that we pay to farmers becomes ridiculous, that the money we get from the sales of cocoa, we sell our cocoa forward, so we've already sold the cocoa. So has the cedi fallen so much that the price at which we sold cocoa will be able to make so much results that we can now change the producer price and not affect the total revenues, then yes, it will be looked at. But seriously, our research department is looking at that. We work closely with the Bank of Ghana, so they would also advise on what is happening. And we'll be able to change things if we need to change. But for now, no.
The Cocoa Board Public Relations Manager maintained the board will look into the matter, but has in the meantime urged the security agencies at the borders to ensure cocoa beans are not smuggled out of the country.
The Ghana Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association has called on government to reconsider the 17.5% VAT its members are now being required to pay. The association, which has over the years been exempt to paying the tax, says the tax will force up prices of the product and affect cost of healthcare delivery for the ordinary Ghanaian.
Contrary to comments by the chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee that pharmaceutical companies will not be affected by the increase in VAT, the pharmaceuticals say they are complying with the directive to pay the 17.5% VAT currently.
Once it's the law, we must be law-abiding. You do not have to like the law to obey it. It's our government, it's brought a law, we are not happy with the law, but we must comply and then negotiate with them. That is our position.
Certain things that they buy locally, like paracetamol, like these diabetic drugs, metformin and those things, the prices are going to go up, definitely.
Executive Secretary of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association of Ghana, Kwabna Santi, has therefore urged government to reconsider its position on imposing the new VAT rate on the pharmaceutical sector, since it plays a critical role in the economy.
The pharmaceutical industry in Ghana serves two purposes, indeed everywhere. It is a public health agency as well as an industry. As a public health agency, it provides medicines. Key of them is quality and affordability to our people. The second point is that it is also an industry and therefore helps create employment for our people. Today, there are people in the streets complaining of lack of jobs and so forth. Job creation can only be solved by manufacturing. And one sector that, in my view, should be developed to solve this problem is a pharmaceutical industry.
The former president of the association, Dr. Michael Ajekumado, expressed fears that the quality of their products might be affected following the increase.
I believe that by imposing this tax on us, we are not going to be competitive. The industry survives on our quality. Now, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, they all prefer Ghana-made pharmaceuticals. Almost all industries in this country have collapsed, save the pharmaceutical industry. Talk about the poultry industry, textile industry, furniture industry, they're all gone.
Pharmaceutical manufacturers have always been exempted from paying value-added tax since the tax was introduced in 1996. The recent addition of 2.5% to the existing 15% VAT, according to the government, is to create a level playing field for industry players, including importers. According to the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, even though they are not against the increase in VAT, the jump from 0 to 17.5% is unfair and want it reduced to at least 2.5%. Emmanuel, Joy News, Accra.
Well, let's look at some chieftaincy dispute. There seems to be some confusion over who should lead the people as well as manage the Sioux lands of Kwashikuma, a community in the Gan West district. Well, this has resulted in a police case after one faction reported the other to the Amasaman police station for assaulting them.
Some residents of Kwashikuma, clad in red bands and holding placards, chanted in front of the Amasaman District Police Headquarters to register their grievance. They had accompanied their queen mother, who had been summoned to the station to answer questions about an alleged assault leveled against her and her supporters. According to the queen mother, some unknown persons came to the community last Sunday to install a chief, a move they vehemently refused.
For 32 good years in Liami. Ina kwa meda kwa meba mekeshi poni yo kwa chikuma fe amenomi ni wakaji ameno sande ye court he wana meba last Sunday amekesha me baba wo manche na me wo manye na me pami ni waka no way e jake rueche wo liame he wani wo shia me ni wo shia me ameke wo jia me number report ya Masama police station na ka kemi aba e wo gbene mba.
But now Akushia Akujo, an attorney, denied the claims, explaining they were in the community under the instructions of the Sempe chief, Ni Adote Obuo, who had asked them to form a committee. The committee, she said, was to steer the affairs of the community, including the installation of a chief.
The committee that was functioning in the village was formed by themselves. They did not use the rules of chieftaincy. They did not use tradition. They only did it just like that. And since tradition works, since the Chieftaincy Act works, we want to put it on its way. We did not go there to install any chief. We went there to make our other halves know that the ruling that was given by the Traditional Council, the time has come that the committee must be formed. But unfortunately, my own nephew asked them, instructed them to attack us, my own nephew.
She also denied claims she and her group were not members of the community, insisting their ancestors were from Kwashikuma. The community is said to have been without a chief for the past 2 years after the death of its last chief. For now, one side claims they are there to put things in order, while the other is resisting what they claim to be interference in their chieftaincy issues. One thing is certain, if these boiling chieftaincy issues are not resolved amicably and soon, they may escalate into conflict as seen in other parts of the country.
A group of unemployed graduates has started an indefinite hunger strike over what is described as a refusal of both the National Service Secretariat and Education Ministry to cooperate in the establishment of funds to support unemployed graduates. The group Graduates Initiative Africa says the proposed fund seeks to make deductions from the allowance paid National Service personnel to support their welfare of its members.
7 of the group's members, including 2 executives, Tuesday morning picketed at the premises of the Ministry of Education to demand its intervention in the matter. Bearing placards, some of which read, "Let there be fairness, ready to die for graduate fund to live," and hunger strike day 1. The group's members say all they want is for the National Service Secretariat to agree to deduct 10 Ghana cedis from the allowances of service personnel across the country, which will be channeled into the fund. Malcolm Asamoah is the founder of the group.
It's about improving the livelihoods of young people and their welfare. So we came out with this program called the Graduates Fund. just like we have the Teachers Fund, we decided to create a similar model for graduates. Okay, so what we are seeking for is that although we have options there where members of the fund can contribute to the graduate fund program, we also want the National Service Secretariat to create another option that is giving them a platform where any individual who is part of the fund can make a personal request to his or her district director that I belong to this organization and I'm a member of a fund. So before you pay me my national service allowance, please take this amount from it and pay to the fund. And then
he blamed the ministry for failing to address their concerns despite several petitions made to them.
Well, we have sent a petition to the ministry in December, and we've not heard anything yet. I have personally tried to meet some officials of the ministry, and then we see if we can negotiate, or talk on the issue. But they are always not available. They tell you they're in a meeting. He's traveled outside, this and this. You know how these big men they well, I am putting my life on it. I think the same applies to some of our members. So we are here to put our lives on it. We'll continue until we hear something favorable from the ministry. If they don't respond, we stay here.
The Director of Public Relations at the ministry received the group's petition.
Quite interesting. Interesting in the sense that now they are saying that they have actually got in touch with National Service Secretariat to give them the green light to have their members' dues deducted at source. But I am of the opinion that if you want to do somebody to do something for you, you need to sit down with the person and then you look at the pros and the cons. I mean, deducting people's money at source is a very risky thing in the sense that now if their monies are deducted and then the organization falls up, what happens to the deduction that has been made? So we are of the opinion that they need to exercise patience and sit down. They should sit down with the National Service Secretariat to look at the pros and cons of the whole thing, so that at least those who are ready to have their monies deducted, so they'll give undertaking.
He also assured the group's members the ministry will forward their concerns to the National Service Secretariat.
Oh, very interesting. Meanwhile, the news team has since learned that the Education Ministry has directed the National Service Secretariat to consider the request of the unemployed graduates. The group is said to have, as a result, suspended the hunger strike.
The Ashanti Regional Police Command has arrested 2 key suspects in connection with the robbery at Ibuakwa, Asemanso near Kumasi. The suspects are said to have robbed 2 foreign-based Ghanaian footballers, a report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
On January 7th this year, the 2, Kojo Chumesi, alias Rebel 23, and Kojo Entry, alias MC21, allegedly attacked and robbed 2 footballers at gunpoint at an internet cafe at Ibuakwa, Asenemaso. Serbian-based footballer Kojo Kankam and his Qatari-based colleague Michael Opong had gone to the Ibuakwa, Asenemaso executive internet cafe to have their laptop computers upgraded when the 2 suspects, together with 1 other person now at large, attacked them. The suspected robbers seized their laptop computers, a MacBook, 2 phones and 2,000 Ghana cedis in cash. According to the Ashanti Regional Police Command, the robbers also inflicted wounds on Kankam and the cafe attendant with a pair of scissors. Regional Police Commander DCOP Augustine Jenin said the suspects have confessed to the crime. He stated that one of the suspects, Kojo Chumesi, in a caution statement, said he took part in the robbery with the hope of making money to travel to the United States of America. DCOP Jenin reiterated the commitment of the police to fight crime in the region.
This year, we are not relaxing as we fought tooth and nail to make sure that the Christmas and New Year festivities were celebrated in a serene atmosphere. So we will continue to make sure that these criminals are always dealt with appropriately.
In a related development, the police has also arrested a suspected weed peddler, Kwame Adakwa, at Eyinsu near Mampong in the Ashanti region. According to the police, the man has been on the police's wanted list for the past 5 years. DCOP Augustine Jennings said during a search on him, 29 wrappers and a quantity of dried leaves suspected to be Indian hemp were found.
Well, let's move away from crime, and ideally, the sea is to produce fish. Four-legged animals like lions, deers, and the leopard are found in the forest. But, well, let's look at this. Fishermen at Ekong in the Central Region on Tuesday made a strange but heavy catch during their fishing expedition. Well, I tell you, it is a huge deer. The catch has caused a stir in the community as the townsfolk are yet to come to terms as to how the deer got into the sea. It will become a very much unbelievable sight, and myself, I don't believe a deer could survive in the sea. Can you, Akosua?
No, I can't. I mean, I'm amazed.
Yeah, it looks strange. I'm sure another canoe also met them halfway in the sea and brought there. You never know. Looks strange, really.
In the sea?
I think that sometimes, superstition is,
well.
Well, strange things do happen, if that's the truth. Now, let's just bring you up to speed with the top headlines we have for the morning.
Government terminates contract with some service providers under the Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, GIDA, while Minister assures there will be no lawsuits.
Well, the Ministry of Education has directed the National Service Secretariat to consider requests of unemployed graduates. The group is said to have, as a result, suspended its hunger strike it embarked on the early hours of Tuesday.
Yes, so that's what we have for you this morning news, but I'll bring you details of sports with Jack next.